what to do with the thought of, I'll never be able to change. In my classes and programs, I often talk about the importance of your thoughts in achieving your goals. So in this video, I'll give you a little background on why working with your thoughts is so important and some ways to work with negative thoughts, especially the one that says, I'll never be able to change. This is a thought that so many people that I've worked with tell me they struggle with, and I get it. I have definitely wrestled with this one in the past, and it can literally stop you in your tracks. I'm trauma-informed eating psychology coach Lori Montre. I help you overcome emotional eating, binge eating, overeating, and chronic dieting, all through the lens of trauma and your nervous system. My approach is different in that it does not rely on willpower, control, or shame. It relies on trauma and somatic based tools, as well as the latest science in behavior change and neuroplasticity. With the right tools, guidance, and support, you can finally overcome your challenges with food and start living in freedom. I encourage you to subscribe to the channel so you'll receive more pertinent content, and especially so that you can help me reach more people that need support with emotional eating. So let's dive into the world of your thoughts. First of all, your thoughts create the emotions that then cause you to turn to food. I mean, think about this. Any emotion you experience has a set of thoughts behind it. If you're feeling insecure, you're thinking you're not good enough. If you are anxious, you're thinking about something in the future that feels uncertain or scary. If you're feeling shame, you're thinking about a circumstance where you weren't what you thought you should be. Unpleasant emotions generated by our negative thought patterns quickly lead to an exaggerated desire for comfort and distraction. And those desires may cause you to turn to food, even though your body has no real need for nourishment. To be sure, negative thinking is at the root of many of your emotional eating experiences. Secondly, your thinking activates your nervous system, and an activated nervous system will find something to help it get regulated again. Food is often the quickest and easiest thing available. Your nervous system and your thoughts are closely tied together, and the state of your nervous system and your behavior with food are closely tied together. You know, as the Buddha is often quoted for saying, the mind is everything. What we think, we become. So thinking that you are strong, confident, resourceful, capable, powerful allows you to show up for life in that way. Your ability to create the life you want really does start with your thinking. When you're thinking, I'll never be able to change. I've had these behaviors for too long to be able to change them. Or I'll always struggle with food. It's all too much. What's the point anyway? When these are your thoughts, your feelings are of helplessness, powerlessness, maybe even despair. And truly, these are really hard, difficult emotions to contend with. And you may not have the skill or the emotional resiliency to simply be with these emotions and instead turn to food to cope, numb, or avoid these painful emotions. Now, in addition, these thoughts and emotions then trigger your nervous system, cause you to feel activated or uneasy. If you're paying attention, you can literally feel your thoughts within your body. And this thought of, I'll never be able to change, it might feel a little different in our different bodies, but, we could see it registering like a tightness in your chest, a pain in your heart, a knot in your stomach. And these are all natural signs that your thoughts are and your body systems are connected, right? And it's not surprising that you may feel you need something to feel better in that moment, something like food. So you're probably beginning to see how important your thoughts are in your journey to overcome emotional eating. But I'll mention here that working with your thoughts is absolutely important, but it's only one aspect of the bigger picture for overcoming emotional eating. In my Freedom from Emotional Eating course that is currently open for enrollment, I teach 3 main keys. Number 1, working with your habituated pathways that send you robotically to food. Number 2, working with your nervous system to feel calm and resourced, not overwhelmed, not anxious, so that you don't need food to help you regulate. And 3, learning emotional resilience so you can ride the waves of your emotions without needing to cope, numb, or distract with food. But you can easily see how your thoughts play into this bigger picture and why stopping those unhelpful thoughts really is part of the key to claiming the freedom that you want. So let's turn our attention to how habitual thoughts get formed so you can better understand the process we're going to use to change them. Now, you've probably heard what fires together, wires together. What this really means is that when you think a thought repetitively, a strong neural network is created for that thought. You literally create structures in your brain that are tied to your repeated thoughts. They become habitual thoughts. And as we know, habits, whether those habits are of behavior or of thought, can be really hard to break. Thoughts such as, I'll never be able to change, or what's the point anyway? Nothing even matters, can easily make you feel that's who you are. When your thoughts are habitual, it also means that your brain has been trained to see all of the evidence that proves that thought true and to ignore any evidence that would suggest otherwise. This is known as confirmation bias. But you may say, I don't have any control over my thoughts. I just feel like they're wild horses running around loose in my brain. And left alone, right, these wild horses, they can take you on crazy rides that are dangerous. But when you learn to tame that horse, it can take you anywhere you want to go. Beautiful scenic rides, smooth trails, happy times. So I want to share part of the step-by-step process that I use with my clients in the emotional freedom from emotional eating course so that you can start working with your thoughts, stop creating stress for your nervous system, and prevent the need to emotionally eat. Before we dive into the exact process, I'm going to offer you 2 powerful visuals for how you can think of habituated thoughts and the process of changing them. So as I mentioned, when you have thoughts and you've thought them over and over, you create a path in your brain associated with that thought. Now, over time, the path gets steeper and smoother. So when it comes time to think the thought, it's like you're on top of that steep, smooth path with your roller skates on. All it takes is the slightest breeze for you to go barreling down that hill. Not only is it effortless to go down the hill, it's also very difficult to stop yourself once you get started. To be able to think a new thought, you have to create a new path to go down. But it takes a lot of effort to create a new path. It can feel like you are carving a path through the jungle with a butter knife. Let's be honest, it does take time and effort to stop yourself from going down the old pathways. But every time you refuse to go barreling down that hill, you are effectively working on clearing your jungle path and making it easier to go down. And eventually, the old path becomes less steep, a little less smooth. And at the same time, your new path is being built. And if you continue to follow the new path instead of the old path fades away through a process called neural pruning, and you will have changed your thought pattern for good. Now, another way you can think of this process of neuroplasticity is to think of your thoughts like electrical wires. Every time you think a thought, you lay down a wire for that thought. And after many repeated times of thinking the thought, the wires fuse together to make a thick, high-speed cable that your thoughts can easily travel down in a split second. If you want to create a new thought pattern, you have to lay new wire. So in this visual, every time you think your new thought, you're removing a wire from the old thick cable, putting it on the new cable. And after a while, the new cable gets thick and your thoughts can travel easier in this direction. You may feel like what I'm describing is this big complicated process, but I don't want you to feel that way because I'm describing it like creating a new high-speed cable and carving a path through the jungle because I want you to understand the process. I want you to know that you're not going to think a new thought once or twice and have massive change in your life. It's going to take patience and consistency to create this new path. Most often the old path feels really safe, right? Even if it feels bad. So for example, if we're working with the thought that tells you nothing can ever change for me, it feels safe to continue believing that because you can protect yourself from the disappointment that comes from past failures to change. So telling yourself, things can change for me, might not feel safe. And this adds to the difficulty of changing your thinking. But remember, You absolutely do not have to change your brain and your nervous system overnight. You don't have to work on everything all at once. But by working consistently and faithfully on just a couple of your thoughts, you'll get there. And the awesome thing is that once you start the work and realize that you can change old thought patterns, the work comes much more easily. So let's get into the actual steps of redirecting your thoughts. Step one is to identify the thought pattern that's prevalent for you. In this video, we've already decided we're working specifically with the thought that I'll never be able to change. Step two is to stop that old thought. At the point where you recognize you're thinking the old thought, you have to make a choice. Do I want to go down the same old path, or do I want change? Remember the visuals I gave you with the smooth, steep pathway and the cables, and ask yourself if you want to make the old pathway even easier to follow, or do I want to create a new path in this moment? Now, some will teach that the best way to thought redirection is to stop the old thought and immediately pick up a new thought. But a lot of people just don't have success with this technique. I haven't had success with that technique a lot of the times. Maybe you've tried it in that way without good results. So I want to help you understand why that might be the case. First of all, in order to rewire your brain, and that's what we're doing here, you have to have access to the parts of your brain that are capable of creating new structures. This part of your brain is what I call higher brain. It's your prefrontal cortex. When your nervous system is triggered, though, you don't have access to this part of your brain. So trying to adopt a new, better thought, create a new neural pathway when you're feeling triggered and activated, it just often leads to a mental tug of war that you simply can't win. And you're more likely to become activated and shut down to that higher version of yourself. That's why it's often not effective to try to replace your old thought with some shiny new thought right away. The resistance might be too high in that triggered moment. Now, there is definitely 100% absolutely a time and place for working with the new thoughts. It's necessary, but it's not when your nervous system is activated. It's after you've returned to your higher self and can use that brilliant prefrontal cortex to help you wire in new, more aligned thoughts. New thoughts are essential, right? If you want change, you have to develop new thoughts. But the way you go about adopting those new thoughts is really important. So, what do you do when you realize you're caught up in one of those old unhelpful thought patterns? You stop yourself from traveling down the old familiar well-worn pathway. Now, this can be done by using your words and your action. Okay, we're going to, you can experiment with many words, but something in the form of stop, halt, no way, not today, no you don't, okay? All of these kind of phrases will trigger you, will alert you to the fact that you're going down a path you don't want to go down. And I encourage you to try on a few phrases and really see which one resonates best with you. Try to use a firm, clear, but gentle, kind voice, and recognize that you are going in a direction that has not served you in the past. Remember, this is not a place of judgment, but your stop comes from your brilliant, powerful, supportive self. You can also use your body to help you set your intent to stop. That can be one hand extended, two hands extended, hands crossed in front of you. You can shake your finger in a firm but slightly playful, not punitive way. And if something else would feel more powerful to you, then by all means, try it on and use it. By stopping your thought without trying to convince yourself that something else is true, you're not going to be engaging in a debate with your mind. You simply turn direction, refuse to go down the well-worn path in favor of something higher. You may also find it useful to visualize some kind of barrier to keep you from going down that old familiar pathway, right? You could put up a wall there so you're not going to be able to go down. Now, even though I said this is not the time to engage with a new thought, you need something to replace the old thought in that moment, right? Trying to stop one thought without something to replace it's almost impossible. Your mind's going to be doing something. So here are some suggestions that should work well for most types of thoughts, regardless of the type of thought pattern that you're dealing with. You could say, those thoughts are not helpful. That's my old thinking, which leads to old results. If I want something new, I need to think something new. Those thoughts are not who I am. I refuse to think those thoughts anymore. So, this is the first step of stopping. It's as easy as using your voice and your hands to create a break from going down the same old road. You can then make your declaration that you refuse to do the same old thing any longer. In this moment, it's important to acknowledge that you're making a choice, right? You're exercising a choice to not continue in the same old way. You're making a choice to do something different. You're creating a new pathway, right? You're carving that jungle path, laying down new wires. So again, we want to avoid that conflict where the old thought says, I can't change. And the new thought says, well, of course I can. I am successful. And the old thought says, if you're so successful, why are you eating that ice cream? And back and forth, right? This back and forth circling, it takes up a lot of energy, doesn't tend to move the needle much, if at all, in shifting out of old patterns. It's exhausting. It can cause us to feel even more unresourceful in the moment. That's why our secret weapon for rewiring is getting into the body as soon as we stop the old thought, right? And that's the next step. Why is it important to be in the body? Well, safety exists in the body. When you're in the body, you're in the present, and safety can only be found in the here and now. Most anxiety is about what happened in the past or what we're worrying about happening in the future. And the nervous system is greatly affected by your thoughts. So when you're not in the present, your nervous system is lacking safety. Being present to your body's sensations is a way for you to show up for yourself. It's how you show yourself that someone is there with you and for you. The way to heal the past and create your desired future is to be present in the here and now. Coming into your body, this next step is a simple practice, but it is not one that may come naturally to you. It's likely to be a new experience for a lot of you and not necessarily one that you'll feel entirely comfortable with. And that's why we spend considerable time in the program learning how to do this. This brings us to step 4, positive reinforcement. This fourth step in thought redirection is to recognize that you did something different and congratulate yourself for the effort. Now, the value of positive reinforcement is absolutely undeniable. By acknowledging that you did something different when your mind presented the same old thought pattern, helps you continue to take new action. It solidifies your new neural pathways that you're building and makes it easier. Although you can use any phrase or statement that recognizes and encourages yourself, here's a couple just to get you started. Great job recognizing the old patterns and committing to something different. Yes, I chose change. I refuse to go blindly down the old path. Change and growth are here for me. Now, notice that none of these statements rely on your thought redirection practice to be perfect. Even if you still think the old thought many times, at least you've made the effort to notice and stop yourself, and you deserve positive reinforcement for this. Even if your thoughts keep coming, you cleared some of the brush from your jungle path and you laid down new wire in your high-speed cable by noticing and trying to take yourself in a new direction. With consistent practice, it will become easier and easier to stop the old thought, choose the new way, get into your body, and build new neural pathways. Trust in the process, trust in neuroplasticity, trust in yourself. Now, the next step would be to develop that new line of thinking that you're going to embrace. The thinking that would be aligned with where you want to go and what would be helpful for you. And that's the next module in my course. As I mentioned, the road to overcoming emotional eating has a few stops on it, right? Habituated pathways, regulating your nervous system, and emotional resiliency are the most important. If you're ready to learn more about how you can apply these keys in your own challenges with food, visit www.freedomemotionaleating.com. And when the thought of nothing will ever change for me comes knocking, tell your brain there is a way. Freedom is possible.